We will fight for the auto workers. For us, it's extremely important that GM abides by its commitment, and a lot of Canadian taxpayers' money was involved. Now, it's time for you to be there for Canadians. And that's why we'll make sure that we work with the Detroit Three, so GM, Stellantis, and Ford.
Industry Minister Mélanie Joly isn't offering polite diplomacy anymore. She's fighting to restart production at GM's CAMI plant in Ingersoll, Ontario, and warning Detroit's auto giants that Canada will not be their dumping ground. In her national interview this week, Joly reaffirmed Ottawa's late October decision to cut tariff-free import quotas for GM and Stellantis, tying trade privileges directly to how much they build inside Canada. It's a bold move that comes just months after Donald Trump's 25% auto tariffs upended North America's car industry. And for once, Canada isn't reacting, it's striking first. In late October, the Department of Finance Canada slashed GM's tariff-free quota by roughly a quarter and Stellantis by nearly half after both firms scaled down production north of the border. The decision came just before Prime Minister Mark Carney unveiled his first budget in early November, centered on a new Buy Canadian framework. The budget commits $186 million to prioritize Canadian suppliers and sets up a strategic response fund for sectors hit hardest by Trump's tariffs: steel, aluminum, and autos. The message, build here or pay more. GM's troubles began weeks earlier when it ended production of the Bright Drop electric van at CAMI, citing weak EV demand. More than 1,400 workers lost their jobs and a billion-dollar project collapsed. Joly gave GM 15 days to present a plan for a new model. As she meets with Unifor workers this month, Ottawa's stance is clear: GM owes Canada more than excuses. For decades, Canada's auto industry operated as a quiet extension of Detroit's industrial heartland. That arrangement worked when trade was predictable. But Trump's return to the White House in 2025 and his so-called Liberation Day tariffs, ranging from 10 to 100%, tore that system apart. Carney's government is finished playing defense. The Buy Canadian initiative mirrors Washington's own tactics, turning economic pressure into leverage. If the United States uses tariffs to protect its factories, Canada will use its market to protect its workers. By connecting tariff-free privileges directly to local production, Ottawa has rewritten the rules of engagement. It's not anti-American, it's pro-Canadian. And this new posture arrives just as Trump's policies begin to backfire at home. According to Reuters, U.S. auto sales are projected to fall by nearly 1.8 million vehicles this year because of tariffs, with prices on popular SUVs and trucks climbing as much as 25%. The promise to bring jobs back is dissolving under the weight of higher costs and collapsing demand.
GM believed shuttering the Bright Drop line would be a quiet adjustment, a corporate efficiency move during a slowdown in EV sales. Instead, it detonated a political storm. The company's retreat from Ingersoll not only eliminated hundreds of skilled jobs, but also severed GM from a growing clean tech manufacturing ecosystem that Canada is determined to lead. Now, GM faces higher import duties on vehicles it sends north, restricted access to government contracts, and a major public relations problem in a country that once saved it from bankruptcy. During the 2008-2009 crisis, Canadian taxpayers poured billions into keeping GM alive. Joly reminded executives of that history and made it clear, this time Canada expects loyalty in return. What GM didn't foresee is that the fallout is crossing back over the border. The CAMI plant once supplied components for U.S. EV fleets. With that pipeline closed and Canada retaliating on import quotas, GM's logistics network is under strain. Dealers in Michigan and Ohio report delivery delays stretching into weeks. Component shortages are driving up costs and leaving empty spots on showroom floors. In trying to save money, GM has managed to lose efficiency, credibility, and supply stability. And the very country whose tariffs started this trade war, the United States, is now paying for it through higher prices and slower production.
Carney's first budget is more than a fiscal document. It's a declaration of economic independence. It links industrial policy and national security into one vision. Canada will no longer be a branch plant economy. Factories like CAMI symbolize that mission, connecting clean energy, minerals, and manufacturing into a single supply chain. The new Strategic Response Fund is helping steelmakers in Sault Ste. Marie and Hamilton retool for EV production. If GM and Stellantis want to stay competitive, they'll need to invest alongside those Canadian partners or risk being replaced as Ottawa cultivates new investors from Asia and Europe. When Trump announced his sweeping auto tariffs in April, he boasted that it would bring industrial glory back to America. 7 months later, the data tell a different story. Supply chain disruptions are cutting North American output by roughly 20,000 cars a day, nearly a third of regional capacity. Ford and GM stocks are both down sharply since summer. Manufacturing job growth, once a campaign talking point, has now stalled for 3 straight months. By turning trade into a weapon, Trump has handed Canada a strategic opening. Ottawa's new industrial plan isn't reactionary, it's a counter-strategy. Canada is transforming crisis into leverage, using the shock of American protectionism to accelerate its own self-reliance.
The combination of Trump's tariffs and GM's withdrawal from Canada is feeding a feedback loop of failure. Without Canadian production, GM must import more components from Asia, exactly the supply chain Trump wanted to punish, which means even higher costs once tariffs apply. Those costs spill directly onto American consumers, who are now paying thousands more for mid-size EVs and delivery vans once assembled in Ontario. U.S. dealerships complain of shrinking inventories and unpredictable shipments. The broader North American supply web, once finely balanced, is now tangled in bureaucracy and border costs. Meanwhile, Canada is deepening partnerships with South Korea, Japan, and the EU, redirecting investment that once flowed through Detroit. In trying to isolate competitors, Trump has effectively isolated his own producers. The fight over GM's CAM plant is more than a factory dispute. It marks the moment Canada stopped accepting the role of junior partner in North American trade. By cutting GM's and Stellantis' tariff-free privileges, the Carney government has shown that economic sovereignty can be exercised with precision, not bluster. For GM, the consequences are immediate. Either reinvest in Canada and restore trust with the workers who built its brand, or watch market share slip away to rivals eager to claim the space. For Trump, the lesson is harsh. His tariff war, launched in the name of American strength, is eroding the very industrial base he promised to rebuild. Canada's resurgence was sparked by Washington's aggression, but its future no longer depends on Washington's permission. Joly's campaign to revive CAMI, backed by Carney's long-term industrial vision, signals a new chapter. Canada won't just endure Trump's tariffs. It will emerge from them stronger, more independent, and ready to rewrite the North American auto game.
In the months since Trump was elected, much has changed for American healthcare workers.
Trump came into office, it was like everything turned just so vulgar and ugly.
The government of British Columbia, desperate for doctors and nurses, has targeted unhappy Americans with ads like this.
A quiet but shocking wave is reshaping North America's healthcare map. Hundreds of American doctors, nurses, and medical specialists are relocating to Canada, not for higher salaries, but for peace of mind and professional respect. Across the quiet hallways of Canadian hospitals, the sound of American accents has become surprisingly common. Many of these new voices belong to healthcare professionals who once called Los Angeles, Michigan, or Oregon home. Their journey north tells a larger story about how politics can shape not just economies or borders, but the very heartbeat of a profession built on care. Since Donald Trump's return to the White House in 2025, his government has promised to restore American strength by bringing back jobs, cutting social spending, and tightening immigration. But while factories and tariffs dominate headlines, another transformation is happening quietly, one involving the people who keep hospitals running. Across the border, Canada is welcoming them, and in doing so, it's turning Washington's political storm into its own national opportunity.
This is not about statistics alone. It's about how two neighboring countries are now moving in opposite directions, one consumed by division and distrust, the other defined by inclusion and stability.
Inside the United States, the year 2025 has tested every corner of the labor market, but nowhere has the strain felt more personal than in healthcare. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, job growth across the country slowed sharply over the summer. In August, the U.S. added only around 22,000 jobs, far below expectations. The slowdown came as President Trump expanded his America First policies, broad tariffs on imports, tighter immigration, and a federal budget that reduced healthcare spending. The Guardian reported that the administration's budget proposal included more than $800 billion in cuts to Medicaid. Those decisions didn't just change numbers on a spreadsheet, they reshaped working lives. Across hospitals, hiring freezes began. Training budgets were reduced. Many professionals feared their positions could disappear as programs like diversity, equity, and inclusion were dismantled. Reuters noted that foreign-born workers, a vital part of the U.S. healthcare system, dropped by over 300,000 between 2024 and 2025. In practice, that means fewer nurses and doctors at the bedside, longer patient wait times, and rising burnout among those who remain. Meanwhile, the cost of imported medical equipment climbed as new tariffs hit global supply chains. Hospital systems facing higher costs cut shifts, merged departments, or postponed equipment upgrades. For healthcare workers, the message was unmistakable. The political war over trade and immigration had reached their workplace. Many felt the values of care and community, once central to their profession, were being replaced by fear, uncertainty, and fatigue.
As the political temperature in the U.S. rose, another trend quietly gathered momentum. Healthcare workers started looking north. By mid-2025, the government of British Columbia had confirmed that more than 140 American-trained doctors, nurses, and nurse practitioners had accepted job offers in Canada. Provincial officials told CBC that the figure was expected to rise steadily in the coming months. What began as individual relocations soon turned into a coordinated migration. In hospitals across the Pacific Northwest, British Columbia launched an unusual recruitment drive. Food trucks rolled up to American hospitals offering free coffee and ice cream alongside information about open positions. The ads carried a simple promise: if you want to care for others in a place that cares about you, come to BC. That message resonated deeply. Within months, an online group called Canada Curious Healthcare Workers grew to over 1,200 members, mostly American doctors, nurses, and medical technicians exploring options to move north. Each story reflected the same concern. The U.S. no longer felt like a place where compassion and stability could thrive. For them, crossing the border was an act of preservation, both personal and professional. While Washington hardened its stance on immigration and social programs, Ottawa saw an opening. Canada was facing its own healthcare shortages and moved quickly to turn America's unrest into a recruitment advantage. In early 2025, the federal government announced an investment of $14.3 million Canadian dollars to accelerate the accreditation of internationally educated health professionals. British Columbia took the lead, creating direct pathways for American workers to transfer credentials and fill critical hospital gaps. Beyond policy, Canada succeeded through culture. Where the U.S. saw politics, Canada offered gratitude. Newcomers described receiving thank you notes from residents before their first shift. Volunteer networks helped them settle, find housing, and adapt to local practices. The contrast grew sharper. In the United States, debates over budgets and vaccines dominated headlines. In Canada, the story centered on rebuilding trust in care itself. One country argued ideology, the other practiced empathy. For decades, North America's economic gravity pulled south. Now, talent flows north, a reversal born not of money, but of meaning. Canada has turned America's brain drain into its own quiet advantage by proving that stability and respect are powerful recruitment tools.
The result of this trans-border shift is a quiet irony.
The same political doctrine meant to make America stronger is now helping Canada rebuild its most essential workforce. Trump's America promised resurgence through control over borders, industries, and spending. Yet in the pursuit of that control, the administration unintentionally loosened its grip on people. Skilled, compassionate professionals began voting with their feet. And each departure carries both a practical and moral cost. Every nurse or physician who chooses to leave is not just a worker lost. They are a reminder of what politics can do to the human spirit when fear replaces trust. Canada, by contrast, has chosen a different form of strength, one rooted in openness. Its healthcare recruitment drive may be pragmatic, but it also reflects a deeper national value, that care is not just a service, but a relationship between those who heal and the society that supports them. Across the border, the effects are visible. American hospitals continue to struggle with staff shortages, especially in rural areas. In British Columbia, new recruits from the United States fill emergency rooms, help expand rural clinics, and bring experience from one of the most advanced medical systems in the world. This is the true backfire of 2025. The United States, seeking independence through isolation, has exported one of its most precious assets, its caregivers. And Canada, quietly and methodically, has transformed that loss into a foundation for renewal. As one newly arrived nurse put it after her first shift in Canada, she finally felt she belonged somewhere that values what she does. That sentiment now echoes far beyond a single hospital corridor. It reflects a growing realization across North America. Leadership may command policies, but values decide where people choose to build their future. In that choice, Canada's message is clear: care will always attract care. And in the political crosswinds of 2025, that may be the most powerful policy of all.